friends, welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing one of my favorite videos, which is my book wrap up for the previous month. In this video, we'll be discussing the books that I read in February and my thoughts on them. This is a spoiler-free zone, so I do not give any spoilers on the books. I do give a small little summary and then also give it a score for both the star rating and the spice rating. That way, if you're not comfortable with spice, because most of the books I read are romance, you'll know whether or not to proceed. Now, when I do the ratings, just know that this is not any type of fancy scale system that I use. It's literally just how I feel after I walked away from the book. I didn't read as many books as I normally do in the month of February. I'm a very, very fast reader. I read about 11 or 12 books in the month of February. So since we're going to have a little bit more real estate in this video, I thought it would be fun for me to share with you my top 15 book recommendations. I was going to try and do a top 10, but there's some that I couldn't cut. I couldn't figure out a way to cut. And honestly, even getting it down to 15 was hard for me. They will be broken up into genres though. That way, if you have a specific genre, you know which direction to go. I am heavier in the romance genre because that's just my preferred genre. So we'll be going over some historical fiction, romance, like I said, thriller, cozy mystery, fantasy, and I even have a couple Christmas books. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the video and start discussing what I read in the month of February. All right, so the first book that I read was called Black Ties and White Lies by Kat Singleton. This one is a spicy romance. I gave it a 4 out of 5 on the stars and a 2 out of 5 on the spice. This one follows Margot, who gets summoned to upper management's office and is shocked to find out that her new upper management is actually her ex-boyfriend's brother. He reveals that he recently bought the company just so he could speak with her. He needs a favor from her to repair his Playboy reputation. I don't like the term guilty pleasure, but that's what this feels like. If you're looking for a guilty pleasure, that's this book. It's just filled with rich people drama. It's set in New York City. The way that it's written, the New York City vibes are vibing, okay? So if you're looking to escape into like the world of billionaires, this would be a great book for you. I loved the main character, Margot. I felt like she was very feisty, but she was also down to earth, very sweet, very kind. And she's super relatable, which I loved because in the billionaire book, it was nice to have a source of relatability amongst the crazy. Now, when it comes to the actual plot, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, the reason why this was a 4 out of 5 is because the plot seems completely ridiculous. And it's like in a billionaire romance, you're gonna get that sometimes, but this one was a little wild. Okay, the next book I'm gonna yell at you guys about because I loved it that much. And it's Anger Banger by S.M. Shade. Okay, this one was a 5-star read for me and spice was a 2 out of 5. To some people, it might be like a 3 out of 5, but to me personally, it was a 2 out of 5. So this one follows Marin, who lives at Happy Haven Trailer Park, and she has led the efforts for her community in getting their slumlord to start doing the repairs that are necessary around their community. She does such a great job that the judge in the case ends up sentencing the slumlord to have to live on property for 6 months. But he passes away, so his son ends up taking his spot. Okay, so I read Fake Around and Find Out last month by S.M. Shade, and I was completely blown away by that one. And I was sitting there thinking, like, how could that one be outdone? Because it's set in a trailer park. It's got like kind of like a raunchy, witty humor to it. It just felt very, I don't even know how to explain it. It was just kind of like, you know, when you're like witnessing a train wreck happening on like a Facebook post and you can't look away. That's what that book felt like, but in the best way. I don't know how to make that not sound like an insult. Like it was just pure entertainment. So I was like, how is that going to get outdone? But she does it. She does it in this book. It ends up being even better. This was a perfect romantic comedy to me. It was so witty. It was so funny. It has a little bit of raunchy spice to it. It's definitely not like vanilla based. Okay. So if you're, you know, a little bit more on like the vanilla side when it comes to romance, this might not be for you because there are some more risky topics, I guess. But to me, it was just pure joy. It was pure chaos, pure shenanigans. I was literally cackling so hard that at one point my husband like checked on my well-being. That's how funny this book was. It was just filled with the best characters. I loved the storyline. I loved the shenanigans they get into. I could not recommend it more. Please go pick that book up. If you've been here before, I previously talked about how I have an awful habit on those Stuff Your Kindle days where they have like a bunch of free books that you can download. I have an awful habit of like going absolutely insane and having a bunch of books clogging up my Kindle that I cannot get through. So my commitment lately has been to try the book out, and if like by maybe like the 15-20% mark, I'm not feeling it for whatever reason, I have every right to go ahead and delete it off my Kindle and move on with my life. Well, one of the books that I wanted to get through was A Mail Order Heart by Janelle Daniels. Now, most of those free books that you get on those days are generally a teaser, so you can kind of experience the author and then check out the rest of their catalog. So they usually give like a novella or a short story versus a full novel. So this one was a novella. It was pretty short, but it was a 4 out of 5 star for me. It's completely clean, 0 out of 5 on the peppers, but I felt like it packed a lot in for the short amount of time that it was. There were times where it got a little boring, but overall I loved the language. This one was set in like a minor town, and I don't know what it is, but I just love that setting. I love the When Calls the Heart series show on Hallmark, and I loved the books. So if you also are into those, this might be worth checking out. And I really enjoyed the author, so I'm definitely going to look into more of her work. Okay, the next book that I read was called Pretty Rings and Broken Things by Kat Singleton. This one was the second in the series to the Black Ties and White Lies that we talked about a little while ago, the billionaire drama. This one I got to read because the author and publisher sent it to me in exchange for an honest review. Anytime I get an advance copy of something, I promise you it does not affect my feedback at all. I don't hang my hat on those, so I'm not shy about giving an honest review when I do, so these words are completely mine. This one is a spicy romance. I gave it a 4 out of 5 on the stars, 1 out of 5 on the spice. Now this one follows Margot's friend from the first book, Winnie, who has recently been betrayed by somebody that she trusted, and it ends up affecting the family's business. So her father steps in and informs her that she needs to marry their competitor's son in order to bring the families together and try to repair what happened. So for this one, what I really enjoyed about it is that it had a healthy dose of drama, but it wasn't too much. I'm kind of toxic, so like I wanted a little bit more drama, like I needed a little bit more, but overall I really felt like it was well balanced in that respect. When it comes to spice, for me, I'm kind of all over the place. It has to be written really well, because I feel like spicy scenes can turn like cringy or cheesy real quick. That was not the case in this book. The spicy scenes are written so well. So if you like spicy romance, you would probably love this book, because I felt like it was world-class spice. This one, again, is set in New York City, just like the first book, and I feel like the author does a phenomenal job at writing the scenes and everything there. So overall, I think both of these books are definitely worth adding to your list. Okay, the next book that I read was called The Reason I Married Him, and it's by Megan Quinn. Before I start this review, I just want to say that Megan Quinn is one of my favorite authors on this planet. So I may have just not been in the right place when reading this, or not in the right vibe or mindset or something, but this book was a 3 out of 5 star for me, which is very low considering most of the time when I read a Megan Quinn, they're like 4 to 5 range for me. Spice factor was also a 1 out of 5 on this one. This one follows Wyatt, who was recently dumped by his fiance. In addition to losing the love of his life, he's also at risk of losing the rights to the inheritance that his grandfather left him, because he needs to be married in order to be able to move into their beloved cabin. So he turns to an unlikely source, which is his late brother's sister-in-law. I know, that's so weird. His late brother's wife's sister, okay, who owns a farm that he owns half of because his brother. So he goes to her knowing that he basically has something that she wants and is hoping she will help him. Okay, so my deal with this one was that I really enjoyed the setting. I enjoyed the characters. I never got like fully connected with them. That's one of the hard things. And I think the reason why is because there's so much happening in the background of this book, and there's a lot of characters around, and I was having such a hard time keeping track of them all. I don't feel like this is normally an issue in Megan Quinn books, so that's why I'm saying maybe I just was in like a very unfocused place in my life or something. I don't know. The other thing that's a little weird to me is there was a couple in this book that has not had their book yet. So their book releases in April, but they're in this book. Now, Megan Quinn writes guaranteed happily ever after. So I know the couples are going to end up together, but it just confused me a little bit that we have these characters that we're like supposed to know and love, but their book hasn't even released yet. So I got a little confused. As always in this book, she like absolutely nails the banter completely. So although this one isn't a complete love for me and not a top recommendation, it's not like I'm mad I read it. Okay, the next one that I read was called Welcome to Winterville by Carrie Elks. This one I gave a 4 out of 5 on the stars and 1 out of 5 on the spice. This is like a spicy winter romance. It has a little bit of Christmas vibes to it, but nothing like too crazy. So this one follows Josh Gerber, who is a man who always gets what he wants, and he has his eyes set on a tourist destination town. His assistant doesn't realize that she buys the town that has some stipulations to it, and so now Josh needs to go untangle the mess. When he gets there, he realizes that one of the women that's against the development of the town is someone he spent a night with 8 years ago. So this one was really, really adorable. I loved the town setting. I loved the family aspect and the community aspect. This definitely has Hallmark vibes to it. It's like a sweet love story with a little bit of spicy vibes to it. It just didn't really like wow me or blow me away, but overall it was a really cute read. Okay, the next book that I read was called Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, and this one's considered a fantasy romance, I believe, but has like kind of a historical fiction vibe to it. This one I was a little surprised by because I thought this one was going to blow me out of the water because a lot of people love this book, but for me it was a 4 out of 5 on the stars and like a 0.5 out of 5 on spice. There's like a little bit of sprinkle of it, but not enough to even give it a full pepper, okay? This book is about Iris, who spends her days worrying about her older brother because he's gone off to war and she hasn't heard from him. She had promised him that she was going to take care of her mother and stay in school, but in order to take care of her mother, she ends up having to drop out of school since she hasn't been receiving anything from him. So she takes a job at a newspaper column and is in competition with another writer in order to get a columnist position. The way this book is written is absolutely beautiful. I want to start by saying that. It just didn't captivate me at any point. I wasn't like so engrossed in this novel that I couldn't think about anything else. And that's like when I read a historical fiction, that's what I need from it. For romances, I feel like I'm a little bit easier on them, and maybe that's not fair, but with a historical fiction, I need you to grab me, you know? And this one unfortunately did not. And I think it's more just not the book's fault or my fault. I think it's just like compatibility between a reader and a book, because this is a very slow paced book. So if you're the type that really loves like that exquisite detailing and going slowly through a story, this one may be for you. It just was not a love for me. I do want to give a heads up that that book does end on a cliffhanger. Despite the cliffhanger, I honestly don't really have too much interest in carrying into the second book. I may end up picking it up at some point to see what happens, but I just want to give a warning that you may want to be prepared to read both books if you end up loving that first one. Okay, the next book that I read was called Fool Me Once by Ashley Winstead. This one was a 4 out of 5 star for me, and for spice, it was a 0.5 out of 5. I know, I'm so annoying with the 0.5, but it was just like a little sprinkle, barely there, okay? But I just want to warn people because I don't want people going in thinking it's 100% clean. This one follows Lee Stone, who's a communications director at an electric car company, and they have an opportunity to pass a bill in the state of Texas, which is normally not the most friendly place for electric cars. And in order to do so, she needs to team up with somebody from her life that she thought she'd never see again and was happy to not have to. Okay, so this book I had put off reading because I read, I think it was called The Boyfriend Candidate by her, and it was actually the second book to this one. And Lee, the main character from this one, is in The Boyfriend Candidate, and I didn't love her. But I ended up really enjoying it. I almost liked the fact that she's not likable because it made her a little bit more relatable, messy, real, raw. So I felt like that was refreshing and unique because, you know, there's always those like squeaky clean, perfect girl next door type things with the cute hair and just as adorable. And I love those vibes. But sometimes you want to mix it up and just have an imperfect person that you're reading. And I think the author does an awesome job with this main character having that type of energy. If you're not in a place in your life where you can handle like a dose of politics in your books, you may want to stay away from this one because it definitely does have a political undertone to it. And there's definitely politics discussed. For me personally, and maybe someone will be mad I said this, but I felt like it was handled in a really nice way. And I thought it was very balanced and kind of ideal, where it's like two sides of politics trying their hardest to work together for the better good. Now, I I have my own political views, so I may lean one way, so that's why this situation looked ideal to me, if that makes any sense. The only reason why it wasn't like a stronger score than a 4, I felt like the romance had a little bit too much frustration in it, and frustration on the side of like, that just doesn't make sense. Like, let's reevaluate our life's choices if that's what's happening type thing. But other than that, it was really cute, really fun, and something I would recommend. Okay, the next book that I read was called The Mistake by Elle Kennedy. This one was a 3 out of 5 star for me, and for Spice, it was a 1 out of 5. So this one follows John Logan, who finds himself in a very, very bad situation in which he's obsessed with his best friend's girlfriend. In order to try and avoid the situation, he goes out to a party where he runs into a freshman who turns out to serve as the perfect distraction from his situation. I really enjoyed the first book in this series, but something about this one just was not a love for me. The main character, the female main character, she irritated me to no end, and I just felt like she was like a walking contradiction. Like, she was trying to be all sweet and cute and stuff, and then really in the background she was super toxic. I don't know, it was kind of all over the place. College romances are hard for me because I feel like I'm just ancient at this point, and maybe I just can't hang with the college crowds, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, this one just wasn't a love for me. The next book that was a love for me, another one that I'm going to yell at you guys about that you need to go read, was called Abigail, and it was by Jess Heilman. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. I'm not sure. I'm the worst. This one is a historical romance. I think they call them Regency romances, if I have my terms correct. 5-star read for me. 0 out of 5 on the Spice. So if you don't like Spice, this is definitely the book for you. Even if you like Spice, I didn't miss it. Let's just talk about it, okay? This one follows Abigail, who's grieving the loss of her mother, and her brother and father have tried their best to give her as much grace as possible to get through that grief, but they're kindly requesting that she try to step into the societal duties that are expected of her. So in order to do so, she accepts an invitation from one of her cousins to go to an estate of Edwin Stanton, a very grumpy man who is courting her cousin. I don't think that if I went through my Kindle history, there's ever been a book that I highlighted as much as I highlighted this one. The writing and like the dialogue specifically was just absolutely breathtaking. It was so, so beautiful. These were like quotes that you want to have in your wedding vows. Like, they were just absolutely beautiful. The message in this story was absolutely powerful, and the way that the characters deliver it absolutely stole my heart. Like, my heart was just ripped right out of my chest. There's like a mild love triangle happening, or maybe it's like more than a love triangle. There is a little bit of like a conflicting courting situation happening, and that's usually not my vibe, but the author navigates it in such a beautiful way where it gives you a healthy dose of a little bit of drama that really like keeps you interested, but the overall thing that you walk away from, or at least I walked away from this book with, is romance. It was just incredibly romantic, like sweep you off your feet type romance. I am not gonna lie to you, since putting that book down, I have struggled in picking up other books because it's in a league of its own, to be honest with you. So I would 100% recommend it, and if you happen to have Kindle Unlimited, it is available on there for free. I don't think enough people are talking about this author, so I would personally love it if you'd pick that up because she needs to be spread throughout the masses. I'm not kidding. Okay, the next book that I read was called Love Contract by Sophie Clark, and this was a 4 out of 5 star for me, and Spice was a 1 out of 5. This one follows Theo, who is a personal assistant with a dream to own her own restaurant, and her boss claims he's going to make it happen. At one of her work events, she ends up running into somebody she hoped to never see again from her past, and he ends up roping her into a situation with the boss that she did not want to be a part of. So this one I read on a complete whim. I don't even know where I saw it. I don't know if it was on a Facebook group or what happened, but I saw it and I was like, yeah, let's give it a try. And I was so pleasantly surprised by it. The only reason why it's not a stronger rating for me is because it's an enemies to lovers, but that felt really mild, and I felt like more could have been done with their backstory to make it a little bit more like angsty and deeper. I don't know how to explain that well, but you get what I'm saying. I just felt like a little bit more could have been developed there. But overall, I thought the banter was really cute. I liked the characters. I thought the writing in terms of the settings where things were happening was really good. And I loved the whole dream of opening a restaurant that was happening in the background. And then I feel like one of the things I loved most about this book is the characters had a way of surprising you. So there were some things going on that end up kind of being like, oh wow, didn't expect that. That doesn't happen to me a lot in romance. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Okay, so the next book that I read was called Worth It by S.M. Shade and C.M. Owens. So this book is a spicy romance. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 for the start and a 2 out of 5 on the spice. So this follows 3 girls who are completely unruly and completely unhinged, and they're going to a wedding that they have no business going to. Once they're there, 2 of them end up finding unexpected romances with people in their past, and the third is there just to try and get some closure. This book was deranged. Like, in a good way. It was hilarious. It was so funny. The shenanigans were out of control. This is the same author that did Anger Banger, so I should have known that this was going to be hilarious. The only reason this is not a 5-star for me is because I wasn't really connected to the characters in the beginning because they come off a little too immature for me, but as the book progresses, I end up just falling more and more in love with them. Overall, I just think it's hilarious. This is another one that's free on Kindle Unlimited, so if you have Kindle Unlimited, go download it. It was so funny. It is on the raunchier side though, so I gave it a 2 out of 5 on Spice. It's definitely a raunchy type romance, but it was just so funny. So funny. Okay, so those are all the books that I read in the month of February. I wanted to mention too, in case you've never been here before, or a reminder to those who have, I do have an account on Instagram set up that is dedicated solely to book content. So if you'd like to check that out, over there I do probably 3 to 4 reviews a week of the books that I'm reading, or some of the cataloged reviews I have from GoodReads from books that I've read previously. And I also share some content on there, like templates that you could do for your current reads or book challenges and stuff like that. So I'd love you to come check it out. Now, I'm going to do my best to breeze through my top 15 book recommendations. The idea on these is if you're at the library or at the bookstore and you want a book that is guaranteed by Kate to be amazing, these are the books for you. Now, everybody has different reader styles and stuff like that, so don't come for me if you don't love them, but these are ones that I've recommended to multiple people and gotten amazing feedback for. So these are the ones that if you're trying to renew your love in reading, or you've been in a reading slump, or you want to pick up a reading habit for the first time, these are the ones that I am 100% backing. So let's talk historical fiction first. So these 3 that I'm about to mention are complete standouts. These are ones that really took a hold of my soul. First up, should be no surprise, and I know it's super hyped, but I don't care. It's worth every ounce of hype it gets, is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. Anything by Kristen Hanna honestly gets my stamp of approval, but I think The Nightingale is the one that impacted me the most. The next one that I would recommend, I think is perfect if you wanted to do a book club pick, is The German Wife by Kelly Rimmer. This book, I don't think has ever made me have more conflicting thoughts about my own personal values and beliefs as that book did. I consider myself to be a person who has a lot of empathy, but that book allowed me to feel empathy towards people that I didn't think I'd be able to. And then last but certainly not least is The Forest of Vanishing Stars by Kristen Harmel. I don't hear enough people talk about it. It is absolutely beautiful, breathtaking, magical. I cannot believe this happened, but I totally forgot to mention a book. I don't know even how it happened, but you're on my phone right now because my camera is currently uploading the rest of the footage, so that's why the audio and visual might be a little bit different. One of the books I forgot to mention in the historical fiction category is Under the Magnolias by T.I. Lowe. I read this book last year, and it is so not my typical type of book because it really was an everyday life coming of age type story, a story that follows a girl who goes through heartbreaking tragedies and her spirit through it, and her grace and her compassion towards others was absolutely moving. So I wanted to make sure I popped in because this book needs to be on your must-read list, and it's not one I hear a lot of people talk about, but it's one that I think is going to impact me for the rest of life. Next, we're going to dip into fantasy. One of them maybe isn't even considered fantasy, but I am not a huge fantasy reader. And again, this is another one that I know people are going to be like, that book is so overhyped. To me, it wasn't. To me, it's worth every ounce of hype, and that is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. If you're not into fantasy, this may be the one to dip into like I did. I have tried other fantasy books. They never grabbed my soul the way Fourth Wing did. I feel like the pacing on it, the drama, the action that happens is definitely solid. I will say this, if you are a fantasy reader, there's a lot of romance in there that kind of gets in the way. You may just want to skim through those chapters, but the rest of it is just phenomenal. The next one is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This book was absolutely breathtaking. It was like a cozy hug. It kind of has like the Fantastic Beasts, Harry Potter series type vibes to it. meets something else that I can't remember right now, but I 100% recommend that book. Okay, next up, the category is cozy mystery, and my top 2 recommendations for this would be The Maid by Nita Prose, or is it Prose? Who knows? That one is set in a hotel and there's a murder mystery happening that involves the maid. I loved the character in it. It was so cute. And then my next recommendation for cozy mystery, which is one that if you're looking for a palate cleanser book and just want to have a good time, I would 100% recommend Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for, and then I don't know if I can say the word, so I'm not going to say the word, but you'll be seeing it on the screen. Absolute recommend. Love that one. Okay, next up, we're going to be discussing my favorite category, which is romance. This is the one that I struggled the hardest with. You know, maybe in 2 months from now, I would think of other ones, but I was trying to really go with the ones that are really top of my head, the ones that really stand out, and the ones I recommend the most. My first romance that I can never stop recommending is Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. Sarah Adams in general is one of my favorite authors. She is a closed-door romance author, meaning she does flirting, kissing, but all of the other explicit scenes happen off the page. She has this way of nailing chemistry without the spice that is just phenomenal. So another one that I absolutely love, which has no or possibly just limited spice, is Nora Goes Off Script by Annabelle Monaghan. If you're looking for more of like a mature romance, and when I say mature, I don't mean on spice, I mean more like a healing and grown-up type romance, I would 100% recommend that book. The next one that I always recommend to people that I love so much is The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. This one I've actually read it a second time. It's like gonna be a comfort read for me. It's just so funny, so well done. That one does have some spice in it. The next one is Mrs. Nash's Ashes by Sarah Adler. That one to me is a perfect romantic comedy. It had a little bit of everything. Absolutely loved it. 100% recommend. And then last but not least is Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. This is one of the first books that I really was like, wow, romance can be something a little bit different. It had a suspense situation happening in the background, which I really, really enjoyed, having kind of the balance of romance and a little bit of a mystery. So I would 100% recommend that. Okay, and then last but not least, I wanted to include a couple Christmas reads. I personally love Christmas year round, so I just figured I'd toss in 2 of my favorite Christmas books if you're looking to vibe out for that, or save it for later when you're ready to vibe out. The first one is called A Newport Christmas by Jess Heilman. And again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. She's the one that I talked about earlier with the book Abigail, the historical Regency romance. A Newport Christmas, I'm pretty sure, is also a completely clean romance. If it's not, it's just a sprinkle in there. It's not much. I don't know what it was about that book. It just like completely swept me away. And I think it's a testament to the writing because the story was relatively straightforward. It was an ordinary love story. And when I say ordinary, I don't mean that as like an insult, but it just is a testament to the writing because she took something so simple and made it just so beautiful. So love that one. And then Snowed In by Catherine Walsh. Catherine Walsh cracks me the heck up. She has like this amazing, like witty, sarcastic, dry humor that just makes me laugh every time. And I just enjoy her books so much. And that was a top Christmas read for me. All right, you guys, that is everything. Those are all the books that I read in February and the books that are like my starter kit for books that you should look into if you're looking for your next best great read. Thank you guys so much for being here and hanging out with me while we discuss some books. I'd love to know if there's a book out there that you think I should read. Please feel free to leave it in the comments, and I hope you have a magical day. Bye.